Welcome to Business and Everything in the Middle podcast, sponsored by the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation of Kansas City. Today, we are honored to welcome Ms. Debra Davis, Business Development Loan Officer for EDC Loan Corp. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I am well. So I know a little bit about your position and about your role, but I'd like for you to speak to our listeners a little bit about what brought you to the EDC before we get into the specifics of what you do.
My role was designed to assist local business owners with growing their business and to market and administer the EDC Loan Corp program. It's a loan program governed by an EDC Loan Corp board.
Very nice. So what prepared you for that role before we talk about how it impacts small business owners in Kansas City?
I worked in my husband's office. He owns a business, and I had a little bit of experience processing loans. I'm previously an accountant, so I have over 20 plus years of counting. But it was interesting of working with business owners in the city, in the Kansas City metropolitan area, to grow their businesses. And so being a household that has a business, I understand the ups and downs, what motivates you,
yes,
and how to successfully build that business,
sure,
and all the growth issues.
So you knew some of the intricacies of business before you ever came to the EDC.
I did, personally.
And that's good information to have. So let's talk a little bit about EDC Loan Corp. How long has EDC Loan Corp been in existence?
It has been in existence many years. It was literally revamped 2 years ago,
okay,
where this role was created, and I was brought in to serve in that role. So it revamped under EDC. It was actually a separate entity. So
okay,
it's now, they brought it up under EDC, so it's a signature initiative for EDC.
Understood. Thank you. So I think when people typically hear about the EDC, they think abatements and abatement packages or things that can attract businesses to Kansas City. But your division focuses more on small business owners and what support the EDC can lend to them. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell us a little bit about the process that an entrepreneur would go through. If they want to come in and receive a loan from the EDC, what is that process like?
Our process is pretty easy. We've been told that we've been referred to as the kind of ease process for a loan.
Okay.
What they would do is they would submit an online application, which includes a checklist for their financial and operational documents.
Okay.
Those would be submitted to us. I would review those, run analysis. We have our controller who evaluates and runs the underwriting piece.
Okay.
And we review it just like you do on a typical loan, except our loan is more competitive. So our rates are more competitive. We have flexible, rules involved. And then we typically meet with the client to find out what their growth needs are. Why are they trying to grow their business? Because they need to be in business a minimum of 2 years.
Okay.
So these are businesses that have already been established. They just need to take over to the next level, or they need working capital. They're going to move to a new location, maybe a bigger location. Those type of needs. And so we sit down and say, hey, what are you going to really do? What's your plan? How are you trying to grow? And then we help them grow. Then that, upon an internal approval, to present that, we will approve it in-house. And then once we feel like that's a viable business to add to our portfolio, we present it to the EDC Loan Corp board, which I said they govern this program. So they will do a formal vote, yes or no. If they approve, we award the client with that loan request amount and issue a check, do it for, a picture for portfolio.
The fun part.
And there they go, and they're ready to grow their business.
And that sounds like a very simple process, especially if you compare that to what other entities have as their requirements. But let's take just a step back. So if you think about most business owners that come to you, they've already been in existence for a minimum of 2 years. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you find that they're typically prepared in terms of having all their required documents, having the requisite tax filings? Is that typically what you experience?
Most clients are prepared. They've been in business a couple of years, so they typically have their organizational documents. They typically have financials. A lot of times they don't, and that's where EDC comes in with their assistance, because
Okay.
I can go to a development officer like you and say, hey, help them out with the whole development piece. They've been surviving this business and it's growing, but they may not be able to keep up with it. And then we have other partners that help them with maybe their accounting and then their tax preparation. Because a lot of times they prepare their taxes, but they may not have them separate.
Sure.
So we do that also. So we assist them in that area. And we recommend that every business, if they don't come with us with an accountant and a tax person and a legal representative, we suggest they add that to their team.
And that's great advice. I think that some of like you mentioned, I'm a business development officer, and some of the conversations that I have with business owners do include those preparatory steps that they should take to make themselves viable for the receipt of a loan. But let's take a step back even further. What if you are a brand new business owner, you've been in operation just a few months? What are your options? Are there any options to the EDC? And if not, are there referral agencies to whom you would direct them?
We get a lot of calls for startups. Our current program does not support startups because we really need them to be established.
Sure.
So what we do is we partner with KC SourceLink and SCORE and some other, organizations in the area to help them build that business up. And then when they're in existence and say they move along and they're there for a year and a half, then we ask them to come back and talk to us about obtaining or getting a loan or applying for a loan. And then we also share that information with the business development officers, so that EDC is all inclusive, and they can help them with any other avenues they need to build that business.
And I think in previous episodes we've talked about how the EDC can act as a one-stop shop. There shouldn't be any reason that a business owner, regardless of level, whether it's in early stage development or in later stages, couldn't be helped. So talk to us about grant opportunities. Are there I know I get a lot of phone calls during the day with requests for grants. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Grants are a big deal right now, and definitely due to the pandemic. We, as far as under EDC Loan Corp, we had one grant program, and that was the Small Business Relief Loan Program. The City of Kansas City administered $500,000 to support small businesses 2 months after the pandemic hit.
Wow.
And we distribute those funds to many of our clients and then other businesses in the city. We have not had that opportunity again. We're hoping that we do. When we are asked to administer grants in whatever fashion, we submit that, we put that on our website. But currently, EDC Loan Corp does not have a grant program.
So for a prospect who needs to get in touch with you, can you give them the website?
Sure, I can. It is edcloancorp.com, or they can view edckc.com, which is our EDC website, and that includes everything they may need. Any information on development, maybe locations, and then it has a link to EDC Loan Corp website, which is the EDC loan program.
So if I am, and thank you for that, if I'm a prospective business owner, I don't have anything done, I have a business idea, I don't have a formalized plan, and I came to you for advisement, how would you advise me?
I would first ask you to have a little discussion on what kind of business are you pursuing. Many people just have, like you said, an idea or a theory, and I can give them just maybe a little bit of feedback to say, hey, this business, I can tell you, type of business has been successful in our portfolio, or this business I don't know a lot about. But then my first referral to them is definitely one of our development loan officers that can kind of take them through the ropes, and then to KC SourceLink and SCORE, those other, because they do a great job of helping businesses start up where there's a good idea or not.
And KC BizCare.
And KC BizCare.
Certainly.
So we have a lot of partners, and so I literally just send them that information, and after I have the discussion with them, and then tell them, hey, if they don't help you, make sure you call us back and let us know. And then if that idea grows, I welcome them back to our program.
That's awesome. And I think I also just figured out why I get so many calls that say, Debra told me to call you. So that now it's all coming full circle. So before we get off the EDC Loan Corp topic right now, I want to have you think for just a moment about what you've seen in the last year. Obviously, we know that there were many businesses that did not survive the pandemic. When businesses were closed and didn't have the opportunity to continue to become revenue generating, and they had to either make pivots in their businesses, or they had to close, unfortunately. What are some of the tactics or the strategies that a business owner can use to make themselves more sturdy during times like that?
I think the pandemic was a wide eye-opening opener for many businesses, for many people. What I saw was we saw businesses that actually grew tremendously in the pandemic. So it just depended. There were marketing companies that grew very, very well.
Yes.
I mean, they saw double growth. There was real estate businesses that saw, triple growth. There were businesses that pivoted. We had businesses that were restaurants, and then they pivoted to either more of a pickup door, service online, and they grew tremendously. So it was a matter of just thinking outside the box. Now the ones that just didn't have any other avenue, they suffered, and they did. There were some grants available. EDC Loan Corp, what we did do is that we deferred our clients' payments through the pandemic.
And that's a powerful support to be able to say, we know that these times are difficult. This is not a unique situation. It's unfortunate, but not unique. And to be able to truly be a support to small businesses, I think further confirms for Kansas Cityans that the EDC is committed to making sure that that support is not just stated, but that it's seen as well, which I think is an appropriate pivot to our next guest. I think that we've all seen lots of really cool, impactful businesses that have that sustainability factor, that are also really good for our city. And I think to your right is two very good examples of one business that exhibits that and exemplifies that. We have Mr. Kinley Strickland and Calvin Vick, owners of KC Daiquiri. Yes. And so I want you gentlemen to introduce yourselves, but I want to be very strategic about my questions. I'm going to start with you, Calvin, and ask you, before this endeavor ever came to be, before you and Kinley decided to have this business, tell me what drew you to entrepreneurism.
What drew me was I decided, actually it was a tragedy. My father, he was dying, and I'm his oldest son, and I was working for Xerox, and we was doing a $1 million contract, and he was in hospice, and my supervisor was just pretty much saying, no, I need for you to be there to work on this deal. My father died, and after he died, I said that I never wanted no one to feel what I felt, and I decided to get out of corporate America, period. Didn't know what I was going to do. I'm a pilot. I had offered several jobs, and I just said, hey, you know what? I'm done with corporate America. I'm going to start something, and I started a home healthcare company. But this particular job, KC Daiquiri Shop, I saw an opportunity, and at the time, the city did not have a daiquiri shop in Kansas City. I love New Orleans. Yes. I go to New Orleans once a year. I told my fraternity brother, I said, hey, I have an idea. He saw my vision, and we had said, hey, you know what? This will work in Kansas City. And so that's what made me become an entrepreneur. A tragedy, but I think it was my time.
But I think that also speaks to how brilliant ideas are born. There are a lot of times that seem tragic in the moment, but in those times are bred ideas that are substantive. And I think that paying attention to that and making sure that we're all aware of what those pivots can mean. Sometimes the inception is a little uncomfortable, but the reality and the eventuality is amazing. Mr. Strickland, I want you to kind of partner with what Calvin said and talk about what led you to entrepreneurism.
So the thing that led me to entrepreneurism was I was working in corporate America. I'm an engineer by trade. And even through my engineering career, I always had an entrepreneurial mindset.
Yes.
So I'd have side hustles, so you call them, right?
Yes. We love side hustles.
Right,
yes.
Right. The side hustle is great. But the thing is, it provides an alternate revenue stream.
Yes.
And as Calvin said, in corporate America, they hold all the strings, they hold all the control pretty much over your destiny. And I think that people get lulled into believing that corporate America is safe because it's an every 2-week paycheck, and they get comfortable with that. But the other side of that is that they can pull that out from up under you anytime, and a lot of times we don't have alternate streams of income.
Sure.
So I always had that mindset. And then I'm from Atlanta. I used to work for Sprint, and I moved to Kansas City to manage a team of engineers. And the catalyst for me to get out of corporate America was that every year these corporations do what they call a refresh, where they lay off a certain number of employees.
Yes.
And even if the employee was high performing, there was a mandate that you had to lay off at least 10% of your team. So this particular year, I I had a team of rock stars, and I refused to lay off someone from my team because I felt like, that wasn't fair to them. So I had a conversation with my director, and he said, well, whether you lay off your 10%, or it's possible that, you may be laid off. And, there it was. So I had already started thinking about business, entrepreneurship. Calvin and I had a conversation about starting a business. He was already out of corporate America. And so when he went to Dallas and saw this concept of the daiquiri shop down there, he called me and said, hey, I think I found it. And I immediately jumped on it.
I feel like I might have been there, because that was one of my, I would land in Dallas and go straight to the daiquiri shop. Probably shouldn't admit that, but I mean, just, yes, as an aside.
That was the thing. So I knew that daiquiris would work. We had them in Atlanta. I've got family from New Orleans. I go to New Orleans often. And so Kansas City was primed for that. The interesting thing, though, was that people did not believe in the concept at first. And so we had to really push the concept of a daiquiri shop in Kansas City. People they had not seen it, they didn't know about it, and the way we were trying to bring it to the market was different. And so we just kind of put our collective heads together and created this daiquiri shop, and it's been great so far.
So I think you bring up a great point. So once the idea is born and you all decide to go into partnership, what was the process for legitimizing your business like? So just like you said that people weren't believing in the concept, but how laborious was it? How difficult? Could you walk us through that process? You go to get your business license, it's a new day. What happens after that?
Well, going back to what Ms. Davis said, my wife, she's an attorney. So she was able, and she's a great writer, she was able to write up our business concept with Kinley's help. She was able to do all our legal work. So that process was easy. Finding the right location, because like Kinley had indicated, no one understood the concept, no one believed in the concept. They thought we was going to attract the wrong people. And so that and getting funding, that right there was the hardest part. Getting everything established, that was easy, because we have 2 accountants on our team. We have, I think, 1 or 2 attorneys. We definitely got 1, but one just left. So we had all those people in place.
Sure.
But just getting funding, because they didn't understand the concept, and finding the right location was extremely difficult. It took us almost between 8 months to a year just to find the right location.
That speaks, Ms. Debra, to another thing that the EDC does well, is site searches. Part of what my responsibility is as a business development officer is to find the right location that matches a business's needs. So talk to us just a little bit more about how the EDC was able to help support your efforts.
Well, I would say that the EDC, when we first reached out to the EDC, they called us in for a meeting and we sat down and talked with them, and it was different than the other conversations that we had had with different funding sources. They believed in the concept. I don't know if it was just Calvin and my enthusiasm, or the fact that they could relate to, having gone to various places that have daiquiris, and they see the like you said, when you go to Dallas, that's one of the first places you go.
Yes, absolutely.
And so the conversation was easy. Like Ms. Davis said, the process was easy, and they really did push us to help get us open. I mean, when we reached out to them, we were at our wits' end. We had gotten so many no's that it was sheer grit and determination that we're not going to let people talk us out of this concept. And so it was a relief when we got the conversation with the EDC, and it went really smoothly. The process did, and really that was the thing that allowed us to open our doors.
So let me piggyback on what Kinley was just saying, because we have different roles. My role is finance.
Talk about your role. Maybe we should define. Let's define that.
So my role is getting funding. Kinley's role is the whole operation. He does everything. I tell people, if there's something going on with the restaurant, talk to Kinley. Yeah. When it comes to funding, they got to come and talk to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I went through several banks, and a lot of banks, they referred me to the second lenders. Oh yeah, hey, I had to put up my collateral for my other company. So they were willing to give me funding, but you looking at funding like, hey, they're gonna take us $60 or $120 a day just to get that money back on a $60,000 loan that the bank could not give us, when they clearly saw that we had the
they know
access.
That you're invested. They know that you're invested, right?
So when I went to the EDC, the whole process was totally different. They understood the concept. The paperwork was easy. We didn't have to put up no collateral. It was like, yes, we believe in you. We believe in this concept. Yes, here's it going to be, and it was easy.
That's
now,
awesome.
We have banks with several companies in the city, and we did not get funding with them.
That's right.
And I think that it's probably not isolated to say that other businesses have fought those same struggles, even prior to the pandemic, that it's still access to, what do we say all the time? It's access to capital. We would be successful but for access to certain resources. Not that the resources aren't there.
Yes.
So let's just fast forward it a little bit and talk to me about the opportunities that you both have had to connect with other small business owners and what you've heard from them. What is the climate for small business owners in Kansas City like?
Well, Kinley and I, we both have appeared on several different other podcast shows, like the Potter House, and one of the things that we talk about small businesses is funding. Funding is the big key. Where do you go and get funding?
Yes.
I refer everybody to EDC. If you need funding, speak with.
There you go. That's why your phone rings like it does. Yes, that's awesome.
Speak with Ms. Davis. I mean, she probably get tired of hearing me. If I say, hey, I didn't see our payment, or hey, you guys paid us. We saw 2 payments. But I refer everybody to EDC.
That's
everybody. Awesome. I mean, I don't care if they trying to start up a law firm. Hey, go to EDC.
And we appreciate that. I know that Debra does as well. But I think it allows us to be that much more impactful and to have our hand in more businesses. So we appreciate the referrals. If you had to encapsulate just in a couple of words what you hope the small business community will look like in the next couple of years in Kansas City, how would you frame that?
There's buzzwords right now: diversity, inclusion,
right.
equity. All these things. But I think the reason why there's buzzwords is because it truly has not existed.
Yes.
So for me, over the next 5 years or so, I would hope that it would be, the marketplace would be more diverse, that the mainstream would see value in minority companies, right? Yes. And not just what you would typically think in terms of food service or lawn care or
hair care.
Yes.
But some of these intricate disciplines, IT, engineering, architecture.
Yes.
And one thing that you mentioned about was access to capital.
Yes.
Access is one thing. You can get a seat at the table, but to have a real conversation and for them to really engage with you with the true possibility of offering you, whatever the opportunity is, that's something different.
Absolutely.
And so if like Calvin was saying, our own banks would not work with us, right? Now, if you talk to them, they'll say, "Oh yeah, come to us."
Because at this point,
we'll talk to you guys.
They're probably patronizing your business at this point.
Right? Oh yeah, they want the business
imagine.
now.
Yes.
But the reality of that conversation is they really have no intention on helping us. So it's not just access, but it's also the honest intent to help these businesses.
Right. And true access means that you have the ear of that entity, and I think very often business owners face what you faced and really, sure, will entertain the conversation without any real kind of, gas in the tank, so to speak.
Yeah.
Do you see that changing?
I do, only because the pandemic was so eye-opening, like you mentioned, right? And so I think the country as a whole was forced to look at itself in a different way, and how are we really treating those that historically have been seen as less than or as a minority or however. So yeah, I see that changing. I see it changing.
And would you both agree that small business, because of the pandemic, has now been seen as much more of a staple in that fabric, in that foundation of our economic ecosystem, whereas before, I believe that small businesses were sometimes considered slightly disposable. It was okay if the corner store was there, or if it wasn't there, or if the laundromat or the dry cleaners. But now understanding that those were then essential businesses, they became essential. It's sad that a pandemic had to come before they became seen as essential. But do you see that changing as well?
What do you think, Kelly?
I think so. Again, the pandemic changed everything, right? Everything. So you found a lot of people that trusted in those corporate jobs, they were laid off.
Yes.
You saw a lot of small business fail, so you had a lot of people that were potentially in the marketplace forced to think outside of their norm, right?
Yes.
They remove the comfort zone. And so in that way, people who have been successful were able to pivot and to create something either out of nothing or remold what they already had. And I think that's a great thing, right? It's a great thing for business, it's a great thing for industry, it's a great thing for the community, it's a great thing for the consumer.
Yes.
You know, all these different, hits. And it was brought out of something that, was unfortunately tragic in a lot of ways.
Well, I'm definitely excited for small business in Kansas City. I stay excited. I think that there are so many possibilities. There's so many great people that are doing great work, and they have that drive and dedication to the city that we need to see. So, gentlemen, remind our listeners and viewers how they can get a hold of you. Remind us of the address to your business and your operating hours.
So we are on all of the socials.
All the socials.
KC Daiquiri Shop it's just as it sounds. Daiquiri is Daiquiri.
Thank you. I misspelled
a lot of people spell it wrong, right?
Thank you.
And especially after having a daiquiri, they really spell it wrong.
I can imagine.
So all the social media channels. Our website is kcdaiquirishop.com. Right now we have 2 locations. We have the 1116 Grand right downtown Kansas City, Missouri, 1 block up from the T-Mobile Center.
Yes.
And then we are also opening a new location in Overland Park, Kansas, 8725 Metcalf Avenue.
Awesome.
It's going to be an elevated experience from what we've had before. The current Daiquiri Shop, our original location, was more of a lounge, bar, lighthearted, fun atmosphere. This is going to be more of an elegant restaurant. We've elevated the food choices. We're doing charbroiled oysters, and it's just going to be elegant.
Wonderful.
So that's great as well. And then Calvin and I are always visible in the restaurants, and so you can come down and have a conversation with us.
Visible and working.
Yes.
Visible and working.
Visible and working.
Serving.
Don't let the suit fool you.
Don't let the suit fool you.
Works
Yeah,
hard.
I've seen him work, both of them.
And the menu is delicious. And
yes.
the daiquiris are too.
And congratulations on you just recently celebrated your 2-year anniversary in your first location.
We
So
did.
congratulations.
We did. Thank you.
We are super glad that the EDC could be a part of just helping your business to be successful. So we would love to continue to patronize your business and have other people do the same. Deborah, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us about EDC Loan Corps.
Thank you.
I am absolutely. And gentlemen, you're welcome back anytime. I'm your host, Karis Harrington, and this has been Business and Everything in the Middle, powered by the EDC. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.